States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Can you guys tell us why you got chosen to come and lead today?
Because we are a part of the after-school program.
Great. Well, thank you for coming tonight. Would you guys be willing to go down the line and shake our hand? And you can grab one of these pins if you would like. Thank you for coming. Okay, we have more to go. Okay, did you guys get the pins? Stand up here.
Trying to get the
How are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in the way.
Guys, can we get a picture? Do you think we can manage with that many photos?
You want to do it now or after?
Let's do it now.
Okay.
You want it after move forward? I just said that.
Just a step forward.
No, I won't.
Behind you all the way. We may have to scrunch it up here.
Come on,
You guys
over,
come
guys.
over in the middle and we'll take our
You got
picture
it. Don't worry,
together.
don't be nervous. You got it.
Squeeze in, squeeze in if you can. Might have to make
It's
sure.
all fancy.
Can you
so-
guys slide in for something a little more this way? Alright, I think I got y'all. Okay, ready? Right here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thanks, guys. This is to kind of tiptoe.
Go back this way. Hey, scoot back this way. Okay,
All the way back down. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda.
Madam President, I move that we approve the agenda with the following amendment. Additional certified and classified personnel action for consideration, item E3.
Okay, any discussion on that? Can I get a second, please? Second.
Fight it out.
To me, I'll second, yeah, okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Great. We'll move on to delegations, Q&A, and public comment. Then we get to go to our building presentation, and we have Bernadine Sitz.
Yes, my name is Gina Galpin. I'm the principal at Bernadine Sitz. I'll let our teachers introduce themselves.
Dave Deloche on the TOSA.
Mike Hill, I do robotics and some after-school program.
Justin Godwin, I teach 6th grade ELA, also drama club.
Sherilyn Suderman, and I work with Drama Club and ESL students.
Becca Burnpin, 6th grade Social Studies Science, also student council advisor.
Ms. Carr, SPED.
Lynn Boitano, Reed 180. All right. At Bernadine Sitz, we believe in empowering our students to have a voice, and so they have created this presentation for you. They decided what topics they wanted to share with you tonight, and so I will turn it over to them to get started. Yes,
Okay, my name is Ethan Castro, and the vision at Bernadine Sitz is that all students will become lifelong learners for a better tomorrow. Our mission is empowering excellence today and tomorrow. I'm a member of the student council at BSIC. Each homeroom at BSIC voted on a student that shows leadership, qualities represent their classroom on the student council. Student council gives input and ideas about decisions that are made at BSIC. We believe it is also important to give back to the community. We raise money to support people in our community, such as breast cancer and Haven House.
My name is Elazar Sanchez. Our values at BSIC are included in our Pride program. Each letter in Pride stands for a value we believe in is important for all students and staff to be successful now and in the future. Preparation, respect, integrity, determination, and excellence. Each quarter we have a behavior celebration to recognize students for showing these qualities. In December, the Garden City Community College basketball team came to congratulate students on making good choices and encourage us to always do our best. Students and staff had the opportunity to play basketball with the players.
My name is Liliana Godinez. I am a member of Student Council. Last school year, a survey was sent to students about possible activities during stretch. The students voted to start a walking club. This year, we started the walking club during stretch to encourage the students to stay active and lead a healthy lifestyle. Students walk or run laps and scan their IDs to keep track of the miles they complete. Students earn charms for their lanyards each time they complete 5 miles so far. The 5th graders are in the lead with 1,979 miles. Our 6th graders have a total of 1,635 miles.
My name is Valeria Medina. I am a member of Student Council. The Student Council runs the school store Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. The Student Council makes announcements in the morning that the school store is open. The students can get passes to attend the school store and shop for pencils, erasers, stickers, scrunchies, and more.
My name is Alize Martinez. The money we raise is used to purchase items for our school or donate to the community. We raise money for breast cancer in October, and Student Council matched the donations for a total of $250. We will use the money this semester to make goodie bags for children at Haven House.
My name is Trevin Tabor. We have 5 competitive robotics teams at BSIC. In order to qualify, you need to have good grades and can't get any referrals. Students who qualify can fill out an application explaining why they want to be a part of the competitive robotics teams.
My name is Aiden Griffin. At competitions, we compete against other schools. We earn points when our robots complete the requirements for the competition.
My name is Isaac Owens. It is important to work as a team because working together helps teams be successful. Teams that don't work together well will not earn points and will not be able to qualify for the state competition.
Our robots must be able to move and lift objects.
My name is Emily Alvarez. We have 3 teams at BSSE that qualified for the state robotics competition by earning points because we worked as a team, built the robots, and did the coding to help our robots move and lift objects.
My name is Maggie. We'll have the robotics do their demonstration quickly. This is usually how they would be set up. Those would be farther away. But this is how they would usually be set up.
We would have 1 minute, and then after 30 seconds, we would switch drivers with our partner. And there's corners that we have to get the cubes into, and there's also balls that we put the balls into for extra points.
How long did it take you to build the robot?
I'd say it took our bot about maybe a month.
So did you have some trial and error where you built some?
Lots of trial and
own robot?
We have groups of 4, and each team of 2, we have shoulder partners, and we have teams of 2. The teams of 2 build 2 robots for each group of 4, and they get to decide on which robot they want to take to competition.
And like now, they did a very good job in their skills, because at the KH tournaments, I got to judge that.
And these 2 teams qualified for state. We had 1 other as well. All right, Maggie and Isol, do you want to move this way?
My name is Maggie Guzman.
My name is Isol Torres. How you join Drama Club is there's a paper telling you what you have to do and the requirements, and you have to have no referrals. You can't have 3 FYIs, and your grades can't be lower than a D.
During drama club, we practice a script, and there's different sections that we're supposed to do. There's makeup crew, the set, the actors, and there's a lot more.
Opportunities that you have in drama club is to make new friends and to learn more about acting and set and makeup.
The show that we perform in May for the school and parents is very important.
We're going to do a small skit from that. Nice and loud, too.
Look, I know I'm not supposed to be talking to you before the case, but I just need you to know that I'm not murdered. This is all some sort of crazy mix-up. I was traveling from New York to Miami when I stepped in this little town, Berserksville. Big mistake. Turns out there's a murder on the loose with the same car as me, and now I'm the prime suspect. I'm so nervous. We haven't even got my lawyer. You're not my lawyer, are you?
Oh, Tracy.
Casey.
Right. Casey. I'm Mr. Fox. Sorry. I just get a little bit sometimes because sorry.
You seem pretty brilliant.
Well, sometimes I just, because
Look, all I care about is if we're going to win.
yes, I have full confidence in this case. You have a solid alibi. There's no way you'll lose. Just as long as there's not.
Who's Mr. Scammerton?
Oh no. This is horrible.
Why? Who is he?
He's the best prosecution attorney in the whole state. He's never lost a case.
He's really that good?
The best.
Well, I mean, I am innocent, so it shouldn't be that hard to prove, right?
See, Mr. Scammerton doesn't really play by the rules. He's a little.
Thank you for everything you do for Burning Sits Intermediate Center. Show your bulldog pride. #BeBulldog.
Right. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. Is the board going to get an invite to the play at the end of in May, you said, towards the end of the year? Okay. Do you have to memorize all your lines? Okay. Well, so far, so good, I'd say. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for what you do to provide all those after-school programs too. I know that's extra time for teachers as well. I hope you students have thanked your teachers that are willing to give their extra time to provide those after-school activities. They're really fun, and they're really important, so thank you. And thank you all for coming. Board, did you have any questions, comments?
All right.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
March 14th.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Ready?
All right.
Madam President, I move that we approve the consent agenda as previously amended.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Mark. Do we need any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Great. Okay, so we are now ready for curriculum reports. We will have our kindergarten readiness. I've introduced you. Do you want me to introduce you? You can.
Well, I am Monica Diaz, the Language and Literacy Coordinator for the district, and I will be presenting on kindergarten readiness. And here in a little bit, Mary Carlin is going to present along with me. She has a couple of slides on kindergarten readiness. She's the link facilitator, our grant link, and she's also community engagement. She wears lots of hats, and she helps with a lot of kindergarten readiness and some early childhood grants that we were able to apply for as well. So a little bit of history about kindergarten readiness. Back in the year 2013, the board approved readiness program, and that was a K-1 readiness program. So just focusing on kindergarten, we call that first grade readiness. So at the end of kindergarten, we like to make sure that, or we need to make sure that the kindergartners are ready for first grade. So at that time, we came up with an exit criteria for kindergarten, which included a mandatory retention, and that has helped reduce the number of kindergarten retentions that we've been doing in our district. With this, it's less subjective, more concrete documentation of performance of kindergarten students. There's a rubric that we use, and it lays out specifically end of the year kindergarten expectations. So that continues. We have Garfield Early Childhood Center. So by having a early childhood center, we have one building for all our early learners. That allows us to have resources that are concentrated in one building. All the early childhood teachers are able to collaborate. And it also provides some parent engagement opportunities at that level. We've got lots of early childhood grants that we've been working on, and I'll let Mary speak to a few of those. She's done a wonderful job helping us apply for some of these early childhood grants.
You might have heard about the Can't Wait to Read commercials. Maybe you saw them, heard them on the radio. Then they extended the program to distribute a book to all of the pre-kindergartners through first graders in 3 districts in Southwest Kansas, just to have something to give the kids, get their hands on. It's a bilingual book, and I'm gonna pass it around. It has some really neat features that would have got the kids really engaged along with the parents, and that's really what we need to do. So be sure to look at the little, they're not bubbles, they're, I don't know, frillies. And then there's some cards in the back too, but that was a really good idea that the Kansas Health Foundation had to get early learners going and reading before they come to us. In kindergarten, we would like to see them a little more advanced in some ways. So that was
the Just Like You book. We just finished writing the Community Supporting Early Literacy Grant, which was also from the Kansas Health Foundation. And we were actually asked to apply for it, which sounded really easy, but it wasn't. It's taken some finagling, but I think we're getting it. They asked us to use a model called the Collective Impact Model. So it's not just USD-457, it's us along with all the other stakeholders in early childhood. So we're working with parents as teachers, we're working with all the other Russell programs, we're working with KCSL and the Finney County Library. So it's what can we all do together to help these kids, these early childhood kids. The Western Kansas Community Foundation grant. So I wrote that grant. I felt like, okay, so here's how it started. I wanted to do a program called 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, where parents are encouraged to, and whoever, any caretakers are encouraged to expose their kids to 1,000 books, thus exposing them to lots of background and lots of words before they get to kindergarten. So I went to several schools, and at one school I was talking to this dad, and he was so excited, and I was so excited that he was so excited, and then he said, where do we get the books? And you know, that's something that sometimes has helped me, I think, because I'd have to think backwards, where I should have been thinking, where are they going to have the books? It was backwards. So I decided to write a grant, and with that grant I purchased backpacks and lots of books. Each backpack will have 10 books, and then I'll have like 3, so like 30 backpacks at each site. I'm going to start at Garfield. Get things smoothed out. I plan to have that up and running when we do the bookmobile this summer. We scan the barcode on the book, and we can scan a child's, just a number. It won't be a name or anything like that, but we'll have really concrete evidence now. What kids are coming from what location, how many times they're visiting the bookmobile, and I think we'll have some good numbers. A little more high-tech than just tally marks, which is what we've been doing and how we've been counting. But I think, okay, then we also have the FinUp Foundation grant that I think this will be the 16th year, and Leanne started with this, and it's a great program. If you don't know what the bookmobile is, we have different sites, and they go to different sites during the day, morning. They're usually done by 1:30 before it gets really hot. But they'll have also the lunch bus goes along with them, and they visit sites where there's low SES, so these kids don't have access to books. And we had 2,500 kids actually going to the bookmobile last year. So this year I've asked the children's librarian, a really enthusiastic go-getter girl, if she would come and do some programs along with Bob. So it'll just be a short 10 or 15 minutes, but that might be another attraction to get more kids there. So then we also have the LINK grant, a KPP grant, and that stands for Kansas Preschool Pilot, and that was for the early childhood 4-year-olds at risk. So with that grant, we were able to have a pilot classroom this year. LINK funds a classroom, a 4-year-old classroom at Garfield, and then there was also a state pre-K classroom that was open, all using grant money. So that's really good. Oh my gosh, okay.
Mary, can I ask a quick question
Yeah.
about the Southwest Kansas? Are you, you mentioned the number 30. Are you starting with like 30 kids to start it off, or is that?
We'll have about 30 backpacks at a site. So the kids can come in with their parents before school, and they have a specific para there that will do this, and she'll check the backpacks in and out to the kids that come and check them out. So I wanted a variety of developmental levels, because maybe she's got young kids at home that are too young to start at Garfield yet, toddlers, so she could check out a backpack full of books for toddlers, she could check out a backpack full of books for 3-year-olds.
So that's during the school year then?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So Link has been, I think, just a fantastic opportunity for us. And I've tried really hard to do the best I can, being a good shopper and spending the money wisely. But just getting books to kids that need to be exposed to books. So I've reached out to places like Genesis and Dr. Stuckey. They don't belong to the American Pediatric Association, which does the Reach Out and Read. But she was just really anxious for the opportunity to be able to give books to her kids that come for wellness visits. And then she also talks to the parents about developmental milestones and where they should be. And I was really fortunate that she was able to do that, because I know they're really busy, but that's something that was really important to her. So that's gone really well. There was $1,000 in purposeful play money, and I think you guys have heard about purposeful play. The kids need to learn how to play when they come to school, hopefully before they get to school. So we were able to give 4 pre-K classes $500 grants, and kindergarten classes in the district got $1,000, because basically we've taken all the toys out of kindergarten. So now we have put them all back where they should be, and I think that's going well. And I know the teachers appreciated that a lot. I worked with some private daycares that providers that I met through our bookmobile literacy specialist that goes on the bookmobile. And she knew about these daycares. They're bilingual, or some of them are just Spanish daycares, private. So I fixed up some bags of books that they could have to take home and go back and forth between home and the babysitter. WIC is a really valuable program that we have in Finney County. I have provided board books for their classes. They do various classes on different subjects having to do with the health and nutrition of the infants that they work with. Given a lot of books to parents as teachers. I got an email from Danny today that said that her educators were just thrilled. They would like to have a book to give to their clients every time they make a home visit, but that would be like, we figured it out, like 3,000 or something like that. So we do the best we can, and we have provided them with some books this spring as well. Last year we had a visitor, his name was Tom Kirstein, and this was for a parent engagement activity. He came and spoke at Horace Good, and it was all about helping our kids be digitally responsible as far as managing their time on their devices. We had about 150. It was a pretty good turnout. I handed out a lot of copies of his books when I went to the the Live Well Garden City, Finney County meetings. I was able to distribute books that way. So I feel like we got the word out. And then a couple of weeks ago, we had a visiting author. His name was Matthew Golub, and he's trilingual, English, Spanish, and Japanese. You can imagine how excited the Spanish-speaking bilingual kids were to hear these stories, and he could change between languages really, really well. He was enthusiastic. He was kind of goofy sometimes. He was a good storyteller. Lots of music involved. So all of the kindergartners, Head Start kids, and pre-K kids, as well as patrons from the library that go to We Readers, they could come and participate at the sites. And then we did an evening event for parents as well.
Okay, so you can see we are keeping Mary very busy for preparing kids for kindergarten, not only in our district with our early childhood center, but community-wide. So that's been wonderful for kindergarten readiness. We also, in district, have early childhood video modules that we were able to develop. So we have all kinds of trainings for our preschool and kindergarten teachers as well as administrators. And these modules include trainings for purposeful play and ASQ, which ASQ is a state required screening. So as we get new teachers in, because these modules are recorded and accessible on demand, we can continue to train our teachers. I'm going to show you just a little bit of how a teacher would go to on-demand training. They would go to Power Learning and watch. This is just a 6-minute little video on purposeful play. And we have worked with Southwestern Plains Regional Service Center to create some of these modules.
The why, the what, and the how of guided or purposeful play. Much research supports the why or the value of purposeful play. In fact, the American Academy of Pediatrics states that active play, like moving to Baby Shark, is fundamental to children's health. They assert play helps children learn how to solve problems, negotiate, develop creativity and self-regulation, as well as ensures a strong start to language and cognitive skills. Watch 3-year-old Ellis and 5-year-old Hattie's unstructured free play of drive-through window. What learning do you notice in their play? Did you notice Ellis's beginning understandings of money in exchange for goods? His problem solving as he worked to figure out how to tear out the receipt from the receipt pad? If research documents the value of play, how can we as teachers use it as a pedagogical framework for learning in our classrooms?
I'll go ahead and stop it right there, but we've got on Power Learning several modules similar to that, some of them longer, so even administrators that might question why we're doing purposeful play in classrooms, we've got the research, we've got modules to help support the reason why purposeful play is important for early childhood and kindergarten learners.
Monica, are those available or shared with some of the other stakeholders in the pre-K that we work with? Did you open that up to share it, or?
We haven't, because they're all on Power Learning, and I don't believe they have access to that, but that's That's a great idea. We could definitely figure out a way to maybe share a link with them to offer some of those resources, because they're very valuable resources. Some of our lead teachers have done district-wide professional development on purposeful play, and we have those recorded as well. So we can definitely figure out a way to share those resources. Like I just said, we have a kindergarten readiness team. So this team will provide ongoing training and support for kindergarten readiness and the research behind kindergarten readiness, so that we continuously provide that PD for new teachers and refreshers for those that need it as well. So beginning in 2018, when we received the LINK grant, clear through 2021 upcoming, we are allowing all kindergarten teachers from every building, at least one from every building, the opportunity to go to a national conference called NAEYC, which is the National Association for the Education of Young Children. And this is a training that, as far as I know, we've never been able to send teachers to, and they're so excited about going to a national training focused on early childhood. So that's been exciting. Here's just a little bit of data. At our Garfield Early Childhood Center, we have 595 students currently enrolled. The year 2018-19, we added 4 classrooms, and 2 of those were bilingual, and just this year we were able to add another one through LINK as well. ASQ3 is a screener that the state requires us to give to all of our kindergarten students. So one thing we noticed this year was that we had a drop in participation, which this screener is given by parents, not teachers, so that's a little bit different. We transitioned into some online surveys, and we think maybe that was a little more complicated for some of our parents to do online. So we're making some adjustments and hoping for some better participation this year. But overall, the data coming back from the ASQ is pretty positive. 82% reported no concerns, and this is parent responses to these surveys. Problem solving had 24% indicating some concern. Fine motor had 19% some concern. Communication 15%, and gross motor 14%. So overall, we're pretty pleased that there isn't a huge flag of concerns.
I'm sorry, ASQ's ages and stages questionnaire.
And then there's the ASQ SE2, which is the social emotional part, and we're required to give both of those. So the SE, which is the social emotional part, 84% of parents said there was no concerns in the areas of social emotional development of their children. Teachers do use this data to have conversations with parents and assign their play groups based on needs. And teachers also collaborate with support staff to meet student needs. So if there's gross motor concerns, the PE teacher will know about it. If there's some fine motor concerns, they might share that with the art teacher so that they can provide the support needed. And finally, I just wanted to share, we have new curriculum. So Garfield has Connect for Learning, and kindergarten also is participating in Benchmark Advance for their curriculum. Do you have any questions?
Yes. Garfield, that's a big number. Is that a growing number, or is that a pretty steady number?
I think it's growing all the time, and it could be much bigger if we had the room and teachers, and yeah, that's.
That was my sense. If you ever just sort of sit there and watch the beginning of the day or when their classroom changes.
It's amazing.
That is a busy place around that building.
Transportation, I just can't even imagine how they get all of that done either.
It would be interesting to see if we have the data. It's just a simple trend in growth and use of Garfield and the programs.
I think the growth is happening because of the additional classrooms. So the more ability that we've had to add those classrooms has allowed them to increase their enrollment.
So the less we turn away?
Correct, because we have more spaces available by adding additional classrooms.
So if you build it, they will come, kind of.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
And the data that you showed was parental concerns or parental identification of strengths and weaknesses. What about your data with regard to the rubrics you use to determine if kids are ready for first grade? Are you tracking that data? Are we
We
making?
can track some of that by retentions, but that has gone down. I don't have that number. I could look that up if you wanted to know the retention data from year to year. What we did notice by transitioning into a rubric was that district-wide, there were some retention concerns because there was no solid data to help teachers decide whether a retention was needed. So some teachers may just have a gut feeling. Well, that gut feeling may not really represent the data or the solid facts whether a student should be retained or not. They just felt like maybe they could use another year. And now we've got some solid data that is aligned with our state standards that yes, they can complete these things. They might be developmentally a little bit delayed, but academically they're ready for first grade. So that has helped that. District-wide, everybody is on the same page with the expectations of what a retention would look like.
And how long have you been on the same page with the rubrics that the state developed?
2013.
Okay, so we are 6 years into it. We're starting to get some longitudinal data about perhaps objective analysis of the success of this kind of all hands on deck comprehensive, very involved efforts that you're putting towards first grade readiness. And I'm just curious to see that the grants and the efforts and the time, the enormous time that you're putting into these programs is translating into data that supports that we are on the right track.
And some of what we're talking about is very recent as far as all of the community involvement. That really came about last year with Link. So, and unfortunately, Link is a 3-year grant, $3 million worth of resources for us to help support kindergarten readiness. But yeah, I'm not sure 3 years worth of data, how we would, I don't know, if we could, yeah.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the advantages to that rubric initiative for first grade readiness was to better engage the parents on what expectations were going to be there. So it was my sense anyway that maybe one of the reasons for the drop in retention was that parental engagement. Is that right?
Yes, all the teachers are expected to do a parent meeting at the beginning of the year to lay out what the rubric is, to go over the expectations of what kindergarten is, because to many parents it's a surprise how academically rigorous a kindergarten classroom is. So that allows the parent to be more involved, and knowing that there's a possibility of retention really pushes the parent to be more involved and supportive at home.
And then I had a follow-up. I'm curious with this initiative, if we've got data on second grade readiness, if that's even the right term, if we went up in retentions on second grade.
We could probably look that up as well, because there is a first grade rubric as well. So that is second grade readiness. I didn't put it in this, but there's a rubric as well. And then there's an optional rubric.
All of the retentions went down last year.
Okay. It was a curiosity question, but thank you.
I don't know the exact numbers, but I can look them up.
Okay. That's sufficient.
So the retentions went down for both first grade and for second
Yes.
grade. I think I remember you giving us those numbers at one point, but I'm still trying to get a hold of all of your acronyms. my third year, so I don't always remember those trends. But I sure would like to see those included in these types of presentations. It's admirable and a little bit overwhelming of how much effort and time and grants and grant writing that goes along with this. Just would be nice to feel comfortable that all of that effort is, kind of producing the results that we would like.
Yeah, I just had a comment that I wanted to make. I know how time-intensive grants can be in collaborations and reaching out to other partners in the community. So I really appreciate all of the work that's gone into working with all of the other partners and stakeholders in the community. It's such an important piece that everybody's kind of on that same page and working together, and not reduplicating those efforts, with other agencies. So I really appreciate, Mary, all the work that you've done with the link grant and trying to get all of the other grants put in place to do those, and everything that you're doing to get those kids ready and support other agencies.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Well said.
It's tremendous.
Thank you.
Mark, you asked about the numbers at Garfield, and they ended last year with about 615, and they're at 595 now. So there'll be more coming in. Most of them referrals from Russell at the end of the year, so we expect them to go over that.
Well, one of the reasons we put so much resources into that, the build the classrooms and they will come, is, unless I'm wrong, is this criticalness of launching those kids in their educational career in a way that is not disruptive to the kindergarten and first grade classrooms. I mean, just figuring out where this large diversity of young people are in their abilities, and then trying to help them through, helping them and the parents expose them to words and books, and trying to get them all into that place where the kindergarten teachers can work with them in the first grade. And so it makes sense, particularly with our demographics, that we would put so much resources. I'm just amazed and encouraged by the energy and the caring of people in those programs.
All right, our next presentation are the CTE Pathways update. Jenny?
Thanks, good evening. CTE Pathways update tonight. When I last spoke to you, I think it was October, I talked to you about Perkins 5. We had just completed part 1 of 4 parts to the Perkins 5 application. It's not even the application, the Perkins 5 local needs assessment, which comes before the application. When I talked to you, I was really frustrated with the labor data that KSDE had given us. I think you remember you had a lot of questions about that. And we worked really hard to find data that was accurate and correct for our region, and it took a lot of hard work and a lot of time. One thing that had been frustrating at the time I was talking to you, and I wanted to give you an update, is meat packing and processing had been considered restaurant and event management, and Nicole Hahn back here in the audience advocated really hard for that to be changed. And they did actually change that for us to an agricultural related pathway. So that was a really good kind of win for us, because we knew the data was saying funnel our kids into restaurant and event management, and we knew that that was not the training our students needed to work in the industries that we have here. Also, another point of frustration that we had when I talked to you last was that our job writing the Perkins 5 local needs assessment was to look at the data for pathways in our area and then write to the state whether we should or should not have that pathway. And no one on our committee felt comfortable advocating for any of our pathways to go away, even if we don't have local data that supports those pathways, specifically graphic design and fashion, apparel and interior design. Those 2 pathways are still very beneficial to our students. We know there are jobs in other places in the state, and we just could not write that we should not have them. So we decided together as a core team that we would write Perkins 5, stating for every pathway that was in our region, we would find a reason to advocate for it to stay. So today, I am happy to announce, that we have completed all 4 sections of the Perkins 5 application. We submitted it on time on February 1st. And the entire Perkins 5 document was approved as written. So all of the pathways in our region will be funded. All of the ones that were existing will still be here. And I'm not talking just Garden City, USD-457. It's everyone in our regional area that was assigned to us. That includes Sublette, Lake and Leota, Holcomb. There's about 12 districts, and I didn't memorize them. But so that is a huge win and blessing for all of the CTE programs in our region and area. So I'm very excited to let you know that it was approved. So right now, I am just waiting for the new, so that was for the local needs assessment. Our application will be based on our local needs assessment, but we don't have the application yet. So that's kind of waiting at the moment. So soon teachers will be able to request things that they would like to purchase through this grant, and I'll be evaluating that, but I can't evaluate that until I know the rules of the grant. They don't have that yet. They've released a few rules one at a time, but not an entire document of rules that we've been used to for the past 12 years under Perkins 4. We've had a list of rules, we knew if it fit or if it didn't fit. So currently in a period of waiting with the Perkins 5 application, which will be a yearly application based on our local needs assessment, which will be reevaluated every 2 years and rewritten every 4. I would like to say that the core team that included Nicole Hahn and Chuck Pfeiffer and Julie Farr put in so much effort. And so I did bring you copies. I mean, literally, if you want to read it, this is 32 pages of our blood, sweat, and tears. There you go. And again, I'd just like to reiterate that this is a regional document, so not just USD-457. So you might see pathways that we wrote about in there that we do not currently offer, and that's because another school in our region is offering that pathway. So we did work on the Perkins 5 application with Garden City Community College. We were assigned as co-chairs, Chuck Pfeiffer and I, to the Perkins 5 local needs assessment team. While working on the Perkins 5 application, we learned that the Garden City region is significantly below our peers in the secondary performance indicator 4S2, which is post-secondary credits attained. So this indicator measures the percentage of CTE concentrators, which I know that's a CTE specific term. And Tim, you mentioned all of our acronyms. There's a lot of them. So a CTE concentrator is a student who has taken at least 2 credits in one given CTE pathway. So it can be at any level. We have intro, technical, and application. 2 credits, they've taken it and passed it, then they're considered a CTE concentrator. This indicator shows the number of those students who have learned a post-secondary credit at the time of their graduation. So students who have taken a dual credit course who are in CTE. And so the state average in 2018, which is the most recent data, was 60.2%. The state goal was 55%. And this is the negative part of my presentation, so just brace yourself. Our Garden City region was at 16%.
Of what? I'm sorry.
Students who are in CTE pathways in high school, who have taken at least 2 credits of high school CTE classes by the time they graduate in a pathway. 16% of them have also earned a dual credit. That number should be 55%. So, Chuck Pfeiffer, the Dean of Workforce Development at Garden City Community College, and I made increasing this number as quickly as possible our main goal in working together in our partnership. This is not a number we can increase quickly. It happens every year. The opportunities have to be there for students, but we have worked together to develop as many dual credit opportunities as we can for our students and really focusing on CTE courses. So when we decided to do that, we looked at 2 different types of courses, or 2 different ways to determine which courses we might offer. So we started with looking at the CTE courses at GCHS that have significant enrollment. that already had a class that was similar at Garden City Community College. We also looked at CTE courses that qualify for SB 155 funding, which just means it is tuition free for high school students. So those classes are great opportunities. One common misconception about them is that they are intro level. Some of them are not intro level. They qualify as SB 155 if they require extra training for the teacher or extra certifications at the college level. So it is challenging to find classes that are at our high school students level that qualify for SB 155. So looking at significant enrollment at GCHS and classes that have counterparts at the community college, we came up with, at the high school it's called 21st Century Journalism. At the college it's called Media in a Free Society. And the rule is over 80% of the competencies or the standards have to overlap. And so we had a significant overlap there. So this coming school year we'll be offering 21st Century Journalism as a dual credit. It will be called Media in a Free Society at the community college. These classes, just to clarify, are not free. These classes will be under the college's tuition schedule. Also Accounting 1 and Accounting 2. So those are 3 new classes that we were able to develop pretty easily because they already had the class, we already had the class. Let's just match them up.
But none of them are SB 155.
None of those are SB 155. So then here are the classes that we looked at for SB 155. That is a long list that's hard to find and hard to get. But the college did a great job of trying to find that list for us. So we are offering Ag Economics, Farm Management, Marketing, Interesting, Manicuring. It's not. At first I thought it was a misspelling of manufacturing, but it is not. Manicuring is in your nails. Carpentry 1 and Carpentry 2. Manicuring and Carpentry 1 and 2 are a completely kind of new idea for us. Our students will complete 1st through 4th hours at Garden City High School, and then in the afternoon they will spend their entire afternoon at Garden City Community College. With both of those programs, when they finish, they will have a Cert A, which is, forget how many hours? 18, thank you. 18 hours of college credit in 1 year. So they will be certified to go out into the workforce when they finish that year. Those are some really exciting opportunities. And again, all of those are SB 155 tuition free. So we are really excited about those opportunities. I have had many students come in and ask me questions about manicuring, so I know we have interest there. So I'm excited to see what the enrollment numbers are for these new classes, and hopefully we will get a lot of enrollment and start to raise that post-secondary credit percentage significantly. It is going to take us a while to get that percent up, but we will continue to work on it and look for more ways that we can partner. So if you...
Is there a reason that we kind of fell behind in that number, like with that trend?
We think it comes to a lack of communication between the two entities, and we've really worked to bring that communication back up. Chuck and I meet often, we call each other often, and we try to find what is the barrier to students coming and try to work through. For example, we've talked about the Ag Economics and Farm Management are going to be taught at 7:30 in the morning, so our students are able to go to that class and make it to Garden City High School for second hour. And so we're looking at more opportunities for early morning classes or just classes that fit our schedule better. But I think there was, and I can't speak to it, Chuck and I both started in their positions at relatively the same time, and we have worked together. But prior to us, I'm not sure that partnership was quite as strong. So I think it is just a little bit of both of us learning our jobs and then learning to work together. But that's what I attribute it to. Yeah.
Can I jump in?
Mm-hmm.
I've had started some conversations with Steve about not just the tuition at community college, but the fees that are added to the tuition. So help me understand, Steve, you explain this to me, but if the class is held in the high school the fees that the community college assess are not assessed?
No, I don't believe that's accurate.
That's not accurate.
I don't believe so. In some of these SB 155, the manicuring and the carpentry will definitely have fees, and we don't have exact totals on that yet, but the college has committed to keeping them as low as possible. For manicuring, there's a few things they need. For carpentry, like a tool belt and a few different small tools, but the college will provide most of the large tools, or all of the large tools.
So what I was running into when my kids are now gone and through this, but the fees that they paid for classes at the community college would many times run roughly 40% of the tuition fees. And the fees were for computer lab, they were for sports and entertainment was part of the fees. Do you remember, Steve, we went through these?
Yeah, I think we sent that out. I don't remember specifically, but I think we've given you a breakdown
right.
of what those went to, and those are things pretty typically at Garden City Community College that probably our students wouldn't utilize.
Correct. And these, and I'm not misspeaking here. When you and I went over it, because I don't have them in front of me, but the fees would approach fairly close to 40% of the tuition per academic hour. And so I have been asking the question, if you multiply that times however many hours each of these classes are, is it possible that the community college fees are becoming a decision-making factor for whether or not people follow up with some of these dual credit classes? I mean, in our situation, I mean, of course, it's not about my situation, but I did look at the tuition bill for my kids and got set back on my heels pretty hard related to the number of fees and the amount of the fees that the community college was assessing, especially in relation to tuition, for services that the kids would never use.
Yeah, I mean, that is a factor, could be a factor. We have no control over that. But I do know that they have told me they are trying to keep the fees for these classes as low as possible. And their carpentry was approved for the college last week, so they are working pretty quickly to get it ready by next year. So they do not have the fees out to me yet, so I don't know how much they are, and I can't tell you that right now. But I don't know if it includes computer lab or not.
Jenny,
yeah.
So on most of the CTE courses, the tuition and the standard fees, there's no charge to the students, is that right?
There's no.
Some of them there's specific, like if the program has a lot of supplies
right.
specific to that program, then there will be a charge.
Right, definitely there will be a charge for manicuring and carpentry.
Sure.
And both of those, they explain, for manicuring is like a health, safety, you can't use the same tools and different, you know, I'm not a manicurist, I do not know.
But like for marketing, there
should not be any fees.
cost. But for the academic oriented courses, then tuition and fees applies, and the college does provide a pool of scholarship money to help many of our students, but that only goes towards tuition. So for those academic courses, those students are then responsible to come up with a way to pay the fees on their own. There might be another scholarship out there that they qualify for, but there's no normal source of revenue that we have to assist them with that. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
So when our students apply for these dual credit classes with the college, are they eligible for community college scholarships? Just all the general, like, I mean, I know some of them have requirements, but are they eligible for those scholarships?
Generally, those scholarships are for a full-time college student,
Okay.
but Dr. Carlin was mentioning that the college does have a scholarship specifically for high school students. So if you lost count, we are adding 9 dual credit CTE courses to our enrollment guide this year. Students should be in them next year, and hopefully by the end of next year, I can report a higher number than 16% to you, and that is my goal.
Did those go out in the enrollment packets? Because
Yes.
when I was looking at the enrollment packet, 21st century journalism didn't mention dual credits. So did we get those out to the students?
We did, and I'm
Did I read it wrong?
pretty sure it's at the very bottom in bold. It says there it's an opportunity for dual credit. If not, I made a mistake because I typed the enrollment guide.
I
But
probably read it wrong. So.
I'm hoping that you did. But that enrollment guide is a tough monster to tame. We are also looking into the opportunity to possibly have an auto mechanics pathway at Garden City Alternate Education Center, using the facilities we already have at JDA. That's a few years out, because there's a lot that needs to be done to make that happen. But I'm excited to have a pathway for our alternate students. We would also, we've talked about busing in students from the high school to Garden City Alternate Center if they are interested in auto mechanics. And that would be an entirely dual credit pathway. Also, we have a new pathway. So the health science pathway we've had for a long time, and KSCE has teams that get together regularly to look at all of our pathways and classes and the competencies and determine whether or not they're accurate, or things that they're timely and something that we should be doing. And they removed biotechnology from the health science pathway, and instead included it in the biomedical pathway. So looking into that, we have biotechnology under health science, but we did not have a biomedical pathway, and biotechnology would not be funded once it's off of health science if we did not add biomedical. So luckily, we already had all of the intro and tech level courses that we needed to offer biomedical, so we last week submitted our application to the state to have a new pathway, which is biomedical. So the intro level classes are biology and chemistry, which I love because their students are already taking those. So they already have at least 1 credit in one level for CTE, so in order to get them to a concentrator, I only need 1 more credit, and that makes me happy. So then for the tech level, they have body systems and robotics, and at the application level, then they'd be taking the biotechnology course. It's really not a change in what we're teaching. We were already teaching all of those courses. It's just a change at what we're going to call it, and we get to say we have 1 more pathway now. So, kind of exciting. And we are continuing partnerships. We've developed a quarterly meeting with representatives from Holcomb, Garden City Community College, and USD-457, with superintendents and principals and Dr. Ruda and everybody who has anything to do with anything, we invite them. The list gets longer, I think, at every meeting. And it's really just to get together, look at what opportunities we could provide for our students and how could we get them there. So that manicuring and carpentry, both of those came out of that meeting. We brought the idea, and then we figured out what time would it need to be, how could we transport students, some of that funding, and all of that was discussed at that meeting. Like I mentioned, meet with Chuck Pfeiffer, the Dean of Workforce Development at the community college regularly. We talk about additional dual credit opportunities that we could offer for our students and how to make sure that they're prepared to go to college. Something unique is that Chuck and I are actually looking into attending a strand at the Avid Summer Institute together, which would be, I think, unprecedented territory for us to go to a training and professional development together. But Avid now has a strand specifically devoted to how community colleges and high schools can work together. And so we're both excited about that potential. Just need to make sure the dates work for him, but other than that, we're planning to go. So that'll be, I think, a great opportunity for us to really brainstorm and pull some ideas in a structured environment. So excited for that. We work with Finney County Economic Development Corporation a lot. They keep us up to date on incoming and changing business and industry needs so that we can better prepare students for the workforce in our region. A recent example is we've worked with them for quite a while with Empirical coming in and talking about what their labor force needs are going to be, and promoting currently more students to take welding courses because they're about to need a lot of welders in our area. So we've been working with them to also develop some specific course sequences within the manufacturing pathway so that we can prepare students for the opportunities at Empirical when the plant does open. Continue to work with Finney County Workforce Connection Youth Development Committee. We evaluate the needs of our students and our local businesses. And I did have a plug for our upcoming event, Virtual Job Application Fair, which is going to be on April 29th in the library at Garden City High School. This is like a job fair, except we've had waning participation with our businesses. A lot of them say they just don't have the staff to send to us. So we're going to try having one centralized place for job applications. They can give us their application, and then we're asking for them to come in and volunteer their time to talk to the students and help them with the application. But if they can't make it, they'll still have that opportunity to have their application available to students. And we're going to divide it. In the morning will be students who are graduating, so 18 and older, because a lot of our jobs in the community, a lot of times they tell us, well, I'm not coming to the high school because I can only hire 18-year-olds. And I think it's a misconception that we don't have 18-year-olds. We do, and a lot of them are ready to work. So we're really going to target that in the morning, and then in the afternoon we'll target students who are looking for a part-time summer job, part-time or seasonal.
What's the date on that again?
April 29th. And we're looking at all day. And that is the end of my presentation, unless you have questions for me.
Start down here this time. Any questions? Guys? Okay.
You know, it's real interesting to have watched some of the community colleges around the state. It's probably all over, but where they're starting to locate facilities, when they build a new high school, they build a new annex for the college right there, sometimes connected. And I'm wondering, is that in part thinking in terms of this very thing of trying to make it easier for our high school students to get dual credits and launch into that future? We're fortunate that we've got Garden City Community College right here, but having sat in on a past Holcomb board meeting, I think at one point they were struggling in being able to offer because of those individual agreements apparently that have to be struck between the community college and USDs. So it's kind of neat to hear you guys are collaborating like that.
Yeah, we're working hard with those agreements. We do have to have an agreement with a community college, but now it doesn't always have to be your most local one. So some community colleges are working on, they're called statewide articulation agreements, so that it's a little less difficult for USDs to make those connections. And I have encouraged our community college to write as many of those as they possibly can, and they have actually uploaded some. So hopefully those are being used across the state for different schools. That
Are those like online classes, that kind of thing?
An articulation agreement essentially says, generally, they're all different, every single one is different, but generally it says if a student completes this pathway in high school and completes these classes, we will give them this introductory level class. They won't have to pay tuition. We'll put it on their transcript as though they've taken it. So it's an incentive for our students to complete a pathway, especially if they're considering a certain college and a certain major at a certain college. So yeah.
Any other questions?
I might just make a quick comment. I'd like to thank Jenny and Chuck for all their work in this area. They, no doubt, those two communicate more and work more on this than anybody else from our organization. The board has a goal, I can't remember off the top of my head if it's 3, 4, 3, 5, but it deals with 3, 5, that deals with partnerships and collaboration. And I do want to comment that there has been more of a focus here recently, and President Ruta's leadership at the college has, I think, opened up some opportunities for some of these conversations to be more productive, and the partnership is really starting to work well. You're starting to see some of the fruits of that labor in terms of increased offerings, tighter connections with our community and what the needs are in the community. And I think, there's still opportunity, lots of opportunity to improve that, number of our kids that have been taking advantage of some of these. We need to see that improve. But I just wanted to make sure that the board does recognize these guys are putting in a whole lot of work, but there's also conversations that are happening, I think, in other parts of our organizations to make sure that they have the support they need to deliver these opportunities to our kids.
Yeah, just piggybacking on that, I'm super excited. One, thank you for advocating for this, for our region, and giving a voice to what we know, makes sense. So
That goes to
sometimes-
Nicole on that one.
I mean, I really appreciate that. So many times we get handed down things that just are nonsensical, and it almost feels like not worthy of fighting for that, but it really is, and it makes a difference to our communities, and not just our schools and our students, but I mean, the community. So that is awesome, and I'm really excited about that. Thank you, Jenny, because these projects that you've mentioned sound ginormous, and I can see that you just work really hard to give our students all sorts of opportunities, and increasing that collaboration. When I see proactive, when we see what's going to come in, and we can give our students welding jobs are high-paying jobs, good jobs. So if we can be proactive, that's just awesome again for our community. So I just really, really can't stress enough how excited I am about the increased collaboration and just the opportunities that you guys are going to be giving our community. So thank you.
And congratulations on this milestone.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as a board member, I appreciate you showing us that number, and it's not a good number, but that's where we're at. And to be able to present that honestly to the community, because then they understand what supports are needed, or it's just an honest reflection of ways that we need to improve too. And I, as a board member, really appreciate that. So never feel nervous that if you have bad news. I mean, nothing's perfect. Nothing. We can't be high in all things. And when we see where we need to work, it gives us perspective. So I just really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So thank you. All right, we will move on to the school calendar recommendation for 2020. Mr. Bin.
Good evening, Warden. Thank you for allowing me to come and speak about the calendar again. I spoke in the fall a little bit about our process with adopting a calendar as we took steps, and the board provided a charge to that committee. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on reviewing that information. I'll just touch base on a few highlights. So the first screen that we have just gives you the makeup of our committee. And again, fairly large committee. So overall, we have 27 participating members, and 21 of those people can vote as we're narrowing this process down to select our calendars that we take to a vote. The charge of the committee, this is what the board set out for us, which was super helpful. Maintain the current number of contact days for students. Currently, we have 174 and a half days. Maintain a monthly collaboration component in the calendar. Consider the addition of breaks that may include federal holidays, and have a calendar present by this evening. So right on time. The goal of the committee is to create the best calendar for students within the provisions of the negotiated agreement. One of our actual norms is we want to keep students first. And so we review those norms as we go through our meetings each and every time. And then these are just a few of the things that we have to do by contract. Present 2 calendars that meet the provisions of the negotiated agreement. Some of those are, we have hours set in there of 1,183, total number of in-service workdays, no more than 10 combined. Parent-teacher conference times, the length of duty day, those are all considerations as we're kind of revamping the calendar or working with the jigsaw puzzle. This next piece, we get input from as many people as we can. So parent surveys, we started that a couple years ago with good results, and then we do a staff survey as well. All staff get to have input in that survey, so it goes out to both certified and classified, but only our certified folks get to vote on that when it comes time. And then we created a parent survey as well, which is similar questions, just reduced in terms of the numbers that we ask. So the results of our parent and staff survey, we had 359 participants in our parent survey, which is just a little bit up from last year. That 322 mark is where we were at a year ago. But the staff survey was a lot more participation. 267 last year, and we're up to 418 this year. So good participation to have that. The board got all those results through the So You May Know. There was lots of information there. Again, things to consider as we were going through that process. We were able to get our work done in 4 meetings. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with the charge of the board. It's just setting a direction for that committee, again, with lots of brains in the room. And then of that work, we had 9 different drafts during that time that we pieced and parted and liked this and didn't like that and pulled things together. So those 9 drafts got us to 2 drafts, which we sent out to a vote. And you can see those results in front of you. So I know it's going to be super hard to see, so that's why I gave you a hard copy. So the calendar that has draft A on it, and I think it's stamped draft as well, that was the comparable calendar. So we had 2 that went out, and that one was unsuccessful. The one that's not marked was the one that we are recommending to the board tonight to go through. So a few differences in the 2 calendars. So we work with looking at things like our back to school in-service time and what we do with new teachers. And so we have 5 new teacher in-service days that we work with. And we've tried a lot of different configurations over the years. Way back in the old days, those were all front-loaded, so we had 5 days at one time. But based on feedback that we get from staff, that's a lot. So then we've done things like put a couple days up front and then split those days in half-day increments, perhaps throughout the calendar, so we would have an ongoing professional development model. And then some combination of that in the middle. And so this is kind of what we've landed on. 3 days up front, and then we split those days, again, kind of throughout the calendar to get to our 5. So that's one piece that's a little different. In September, another difference between the 2 calendars. We asked for feedback this year. When the board gave us the charge for the 1920 calendar, we had the opportunity to train our staff in Avid for a 2-day in-service, and so that had to be built in to this calendar. So we asked staff, not that we needed Avid training again, but we asked staff if they liked that model. So the model being that we took those 2 days of in-service, moved them back a little bit, so it wasn't right at the beginning of the year, gave them an opportunity to kind of get your feet wet, get started, and then have some professional development. And we had some good feedback that staff liked that. So then our next charge was to, okay, what's that going to look like from a PD standpoint? So we built that in as an option because, again, it was based on that survey data that our staff liked that model. So that's the difference there in September and one of the calendars, that draft A. And then in November is the other difference, the real difference is the week of Thanksgiving. And so again, we have one calendar. The unsuccessful calendar is more traditional, what we typically do, have 3 days of Thanksgiving. The calendar that is going to be recommended, it has an in-service day built in on Monday, a half in-service day for veteran staff on Tuesday, and then that other piece, that new teacher training that afternoon. So our students actually, for the first time in I think my history, will have that whole week off for Thanksgiving. So that's something that's different. And then January, not a significant change, but just the length of when we come back from our winter break. and how those days were built in, again, with a new teacher day being in January along with some in-service time. So that's kind of the calendar. We are not asking for action tonight. This is a first read for the board. But there is one more piece of information that I promised the committee I would share with the board. The committee would like the district to consider shortening the number of contract days that we have for our staff. I think you saw through our surveys that came through a lot. And so they just asked, would the district consider doing that? So they want that information out to you. Okay?
And then the answer to that would go back into the mill next year?
Potentially, it could be next year through, if we handle it through negotiations process. But depending on what that looked like, yeah. Other questions for me? Yes, ma'am.
One of the charges was a monthly collaboration time. Looking at this calendar, it looks like there's 4 months of the school year that does not have a monthly collaboration time for
Right.
teachers.
Right, so those are, again, just part of our process of working through and creating the number of days that are available. That's, I mean, we spread that out as much as we could through those different times. So every one of those in-service pieces will have a collaboration time in it as well. Other questions?
I just want to make sure I'm clear. So one of the things that came out of the calendar committee was a request from the staff that we shorten the number of contract days.
4 teachers.
4 teachers.
Yeah, yeah. So that's just the information that we got back through surveys is that's a big request. You saw those through that information that was sent to the board after we completed that step. So they would like for the district to consider shortening those days. Is there a way to do that? Still keeping in mind the charge, our student contact days, but is there a way for us to shorten contract days for our staff?
And are they seeking less student contact days in that sense, or just?
Well, I don't know that they got into specifics, but they want to consider contract days.
And was there any concerns, because I bring this up every year, about how early we start in August? And another one that I've been asked about is how our district starts on, say, a Monday or Tuesday versus a Wednesday or Thursday, and how that affects the students by the end of the week.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
threw 2 questions at you at once.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, all considerations. Those are, a part of those 9 drafts are that, is moving back that first part of the new teacher in service, moving that back later in the week, so that shoves everything back to midweek. Because that is feedback that we got from staff, is don't have a full week of school the first week back. So we look at that on the first week, we look at that in the return week in January, but it is just kind of a balancing act of what we do, how it all lays out, I guess. But we do consider that when we're looking at full weeks, half weeks, where we put the in-service days to make that happen.
So were those concerns that were brought up this year?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, both through the survey and the work that the committee did on those, like I said, juggling those 9 drafts.
And this is on the one you're recommending, that January 6th date, where you have the in-service, where, on the other calendar, that's not on there, so where was that day pulled from or changed?
It's a teacher work day
Okay.
on the calendar that we're recommending on the 6th. So that's part of that negotiations. They have to have a work day in order to, before they meet with students.
Okay.
So that's that, and then that work day is on the 5th on the draft A calendar. Is that your question?
Well, I guess I was looking for the day where kids were in school where that was swapped. Does that make sense? So.
Where we came up with the in-service day on, which would be the 5th of January.
Well, on draft day, they go to school on the 6th, then on this one, they don't.
Yeah, so the in-service day is really the changer there on the draft B, I will call it. So on draft B, on the 5th, that's an in-service day, which we don't have in draft A. So the in-service day on draft A was used to build those back-to-back in-service days in September. So again, it's just moving pieces around.
apologize for putting you on the spot. Do you know offhand the number of contract days that some of the surrounding school districts have in relation to what we have?
I don't locally. I provided at one time, and I don't think I have it, Dr. Hannigan here, but kind of our average mean, the number of days that we have student contact days versus other 5,000 plus districts, and we're right in line. So if you looked at our size, we're right in line with the average in the state. But I don't have it based on Holcomb, Deerfield, Ingalls. I know that I think we're a lot different than Ingalls. I think they have a very short calendar, but I don't have the comparisons. So state average is 169.9. This would have been last year's data, and in districts over 5,000 are at 173.6, and we're at 174.5.
That's student contact.
Yes, sir. Student contact days.
And then is there a required amount by law?
It's 1,116 hours is what the statute is. Other questions?
Does the state has only a mandate for the number of student contact hours. There is no mandate for the number of professional development or contract days that are not student contact days.
No, I don't believe. If I'm
So
understanding your question.
The number of, I'm trying to sort out, because you gave it to me in hours, how many student contact days we have versus how many teacher contract days.
Okay, 174 is student contact, and then we have 184 contract days.
So we have about 11 days.
10 extra days
10
with our
days.
teacher contract.
It's been a while since I've looked at this, so you may know with all of that information,
Yeah.
the survey in it. Did they have a recommendation for how many contract days they would like to see?
No, they just, it's come up for several years, and so talking about when is where does that question fit, essentially. And so I told the committee, I said I would make sure that I shared that with the board in terms of those feelings that they wanted to look at that, because it does come through survey information over and over.
If I recall correctly, and it's maybe putting you on the spot too, because this was even before I was on the board, so maybe Dr. Carlin might know. And I think it was Kathleen who was in KJ's spot, but we gave, the district negotiated for the extra days to do the professional development and gave a higher raise 1 year through the negotiated agreement to compensate for those extra days, if I recall correctly. Is that right?
That's my understanding. I was probably still in high school, or no, I'm just kidding.
You were at Garfield.
That's right. I was at the Early Childhood Center, so young. I'll let Dr. Kirkland speak to that, because it was before I was in this position. So.
Yeah, so at one point we added 3 days, I believe, can't remember if it was 2 student contact days and 1 PD day, or 1 PD, or 1 for the opposite of that. And I think we paid daily rate of pay, we added to add those, excuse me, to add those 3 days. So I think one of the things and I appreciate the committee's work on this, and they're trying to be respectful of the feedback they get. But I think really this is probably an issue better addressed through negotiations than through the calendar process, because it is a contractual issue with the teachers. And so we're getting ready for negotiations this year to start that process, and that would certainly be something that fits right in with how that process, the topic, kind of topics that process would normally discuss, because there are a lot of issues around that, and the calendar committee is, it's a pretty structured, as you can see, while there's a lot of choices, there's a lot of requirements to fit within the requirements of the negotiated agreement. I was looking at the one calendar, and Jen, for your question, we're done a whole week before Memorial Day. So why can't you just move everything back and start a week later? Well, I'm gonna guess, I didn't go to those meetings, but I'm gonna guess they talked about that.
Yeah, we did.
And so
It
there's,
throws off the length of the semester's times between the first semester and the second
Notice
semester.
I didn't ask that one this year.
Yeah, there's drop dead times that the staff want to have done, so it's part of the discussion.
Well, and I appreciate that you bring up the negotiations part of it. I've had teachers visit with me, and sometimes they feel stuck because the calendars typically decided a little bit before, or it feels like, they feel like they're in a circle because they hear, well, that's negotiations needs to
Right.
decide that, but calendars decided, so then
Right.
we can't discuss it in negotiations, so teachers feel like they're not sure where to.
Sure, and
Ask
that's
that question.
why we got here this evening, is because I promised the calendar committee we would do that. We would bring it to the district, the board, to make sure that was known, so you can figure out the chicken and the egg process.
I think when we added those days, we actually couldn't do it for the very next year because we'd already set a calendar, so I think it had to go into effect the following year. I'm guessing if through negotiations, we shortened the calendar, I don't think anybody's gonna object if we cancel a day that's scheduled on the calendar and could probably more easily do a revised calendar, or worst case is it may take a year to step into it, but it's certainly, that, those kind of things could certainly happen. The other thing I would point out about that time, we, in our district, when the state started cutting budgets, we didn't have to cut as much as other districts did because we had room to raise our local option budget. So the philosophy was, if the state made a cut of $2 million, we cut about $1 million and we raised our local option about $1 million. We kind of went along that way as long as our local option budget allowed us to do that. There were a lot of districts that couldn't do that. They'd already maxed out their LOBs, so the only choice they had was to cut. And so many of those districts chose to reduce their contract, and in some cases, their student contact days, because they had to make cuts and they couldn't give raises. And so they chose to do that, maybe give back a day as an alternative. Or some of the districts that have went to 4-day weeks chose to do that as a cost savings measure, not necessarily because it was the best choice for students. And so fortunately, we had other options and alternatives and didn't necessarily have to go that route. So there's quite a bit of background on all that, but we are where we are, and we can get some more updated information for you about that. But kind of bring us back, the process has, we followed the process with the calendar, and it's went out to vote, and we're not asking for a decision tonight, but you want to.
Yeah, so barring any questions, further discussions, it would be on the consent agenda for our next meeting this month.
And it's ready, which would be the payables meeting.
Correct, yes, ma'am.
So Laura brought up that it didn't meet all the board charges. Would that discussion be held?
Now, and if you don't want to, if you have concerns about approving this, and you want the calendar committee to go back to work, you could make that decision tonight so that they could get right back on it. Or if you want to have more discussion, but I will tell you that the further this gets pushed out, it starts to set other things back if we get much past the first part of April and we don't have a calendar set for the coming year.
So Laura, do you want to have any discussion on that? Is that important? No, I wanted to point it out that it didn't meet that particular criteria, but I believe in the committee process, and if this is what the committee's recommending and passed by a vote of the teachers course, I'm not gonna stand in the way of it, but I did wanna point out that it did not meet that criteria.
Any other concerns?
I'm curious about what, maybe I missed this, what percentage of the staff voted on this?
You have that number.
Like I said, I probably missed it.
Yeah, this is from the survey, not the vote. I want to say it was like 60% is total number of votes. It'll take me a minute. I'll send it to you, what the results were, because I have it in my email. But that's going to take a second.
Got it.
You have it, please.
It looks like there were 357 voters, and draft B had 215, draft A had 142.
So what was the total number of voters?
357.
So what percent, can we do a percent, what?
Yeah, but math is hard, so.
Yeah, use the calculator.
That's why I asked you the question.
So of the people that voted, 60% voted for draft B. Was that the question you were asking? Okay.
What percentage of teachers did we
Oh.
have respond? That's a
Total
good one
vote?
too, but just what percentage of our teachers are
About 60.
participating? Okay. Thank you. Okay, with that, do you have any more board discussion or concerns, or do we feel comfortable, proceeding and voting at the next meeting? Jennifer, are you?
Yeah, I'll just email any questions I have if I don't know.
Okay, then we will proceed
Okay.
in the next meeting to take a vote. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, any questions I get, I'll make sure that Dr. Collins sends them out.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll move on to the vacant board seat discussion. Dr. Carlin did share with us, past methods. One of the things that we got in an email was that KASB has shared that after 15 days have passed since the publication of the vacancy, the board may fill the vacancy as they see fit. It was published on February 4th. KASB indicated common methods for filling vacancies are prior election, next highest vote, board interviews, interested candidates. The interviews must be conducted in open session, and the final being providing written questionnaires to interested candidates, and the responses are then public information. I don't know if anybody had a chance or wants to open with some discussion, thoughts.
I haven't. I'll just throw it out there as a thought. Historically, when we've had a position open, and I believe the last one, if I can remember right, we ended up filling the position with Laura, who was at the last election the highest vote getter, highest next vote getter. And I think it's important to think in terms of relative votes to a certain extent, because you wouldn't want too much of a difference there in that consideration. But as I recall, it was pretty close with the next person who campaigned and ran on the ballot. And so I think there's certainly an obvious option there to consider based on what we've done in the past and as an expression of the voting community of 457. So I just put that out there as an option. I kind of like that personally over other options, just because of that expression of the public will. And I don't mean to take away from other folks that are interested and have expressed an interest, because certainly that's why we put that out there as a board to solicit that. But I'm just saying that personally, I kind of favor that approach just from the standpoint of that community engagement in the question and our need to fill the positions so that we can proceed with that collaboration we cherish on the board between 7 individuals.
Any other comments? For me personally, I am not in favor of that method. I feel like, and not because I can't articulate anything maybe at this time, I feel like it's a lazy way to proceed. If KESB indicates that we give 15 days to allow people to show interest, to me, that would be contradictory to allowing those people an opportunity without any question or chance. I mean, why let people show interest if then we just don't give them an opportunity? I think that the whole election process is really intimidating and overwhelming, and I think when this opportunity comes up, it also offers an opportunity for people, maybe a different part of the population, to step up. Not to say that this isn't going to be just as intimidating if we do public interviews, but I think when you tell people to show interest and then you don't respond to that, I don't think that that's a good precedent to set.
Could I respond to? I certainly don't mean to suggest any disrespect for people that have expressed their interest, but I also feel like there's a need to, first of all, if the next vote getter didn't express any interest, well, I don't think you want to go there. And so in part, I think we received that as one of the, I think 4, or were there more? 4 people that stepped up and put their hand on the table, whatever the metaphor is, but to, and I certainly appreciate your comments. I'm thinking though that it's quite the process that you're considering, because when we have to basically go through a process of interviewing and, I mean, regardless of what we do, there's a judgment. And so we either go through a process of interviewing and collaborating to determine the best responses to questions or whatever the process is that we devise, it's still a judgment of us. And certainly we have been voted into this position by the voters of the district. So we can do that. I'm just saying that my thought and approach, putting that on the table, is just simply relying on that process that's already there from the voters. And the only time that I would not go with that is if that next vote getter did not express interest.
Yes.
I tend to agree with Mark. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the other people that have put their name into the hat to do this, and I know that anybody that's put their name on would be more than capable of filling that position and doing a fabulous job. My feeling is that if we have people that have voted and we have a person that was on the ballot, then to me it's honoring the voters that have already voted in the community, instead of us just making the decision and voting on our own for that piece, if that makes sense. Like I said, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the other people who've put their name in, but I feel like we need to honor the community and the votes that they've already put forth to be able to do that.
If I can clarify on something, it wasn't KESB's suggestion that we wait 15 days to see who is interested. We are statutorily required to publish the notice of the vacancy and allow for 15 days to pass with regard to that. So that's not, I mean, it's a statutory requirement that we have to comply with, which we have done. considering the last 2 vacancies that have come up, and that the USD-457 Board of Education, obviously not necessarily this board, have honored the will of the electors or the voters. And obviously, that's how I got on initially. I think that's something that we need to honor, especially considering how recent the election was.
Okay, anybody else? Jennifer? Tim?
Well, one of the troubling things for me is that I think we were forwarded an email from one of the people that would like to be considered that laid out the argument for why they should be considered. And I don't actually personally know any of the other people that would like to have this position. But when I got the email, I felt uncomfortable with the fact that I now had information about one candidate when in fact I have no information about the other candidates. And I wondered about the fairness of that. I'm a little torn about that. And then I think I definitely would echo a couple of points that Dana has made, and that is we look for high-quality people to participate in all aspects of committees, site councils, this board, and I wonder, as Dana does, if we aren't placing sometimes barriers to participation from people who might offer a diversity of opinions and outlooks. And I see this as a unique opportunity for us to at least consider whether or not we are able to better diversify this board. I'm not sure that Mark and I are highly diverse between the two of us. I mean,
Some would say yes, and some would say no.
he's got better hair. I don't know if that's it, but and I do think that at least my personal feeling on my election was that it was name recognition. And that's troubling to me. I saw some candidates in the last election, got to know one of the candidates, got to know their background, and they had an incredibly diverse and rich experience that I thought would really bring a lot of different ideas to the board. And unfortunately, running for office and putting yourself out there as someone who could publicly lose a contest, I know was stressful for me. I did have to put up some of my own money, put up some of my own signs, and I just wonder about those barriers. And I do appreciate the idea that this selection of the next highest vote getter is respectful to the public, but we are forced on this board always to make decisions that we may know is good for the school, good for the kids, good for the board, good for the teachers, but may not be, if you were to take a vote, may not be the most publicly popular thing to do. And that's what comes along with good boardsmanship, which is to stand in the face of public opposition if you really believe that you have the best interest of the kids in the school district at heart. Is it extra work? It is. But I guess I just hope that we'll think about the future and the development of leadership in this community, and we'll work at ways to try to diversify this board and encourage participation from people who wouldn't normally have the opportunity to participate because they don't have the name recognition. And they would someday become the future leaders to encourage the next generation.
I guess I like some of the points that Dr. Hannigan made, but I also feel like trusting the process. The election, participating in an election and the political side of that is my least favorite part. But it was important enough to me to go through that, to be here, to do what's best for kids, because that's the only reason I'm on the board. And so I guess I believe in trusting the process and that if that, and trusting the word of the voters and who they went with. So that's the direction I would lean.
I think it's important for us to make a decision fairly quickly, considering especially what happened at the last board meeting. That way we have a full board. So at least to get the conversation started a little, or going into a moving forward direction, I'm gonna move that we appoint Alex Wallace, who is the next highest vote getter, to fill Jean Clifford's position.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay,
I'll second.
okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Alex, you will be,
Congratulations.
fill the next board spot. So
Thank you.
I guess that will be at the next meeting. Is
You
that-
used it. First of all, Madam President, I guess I was waiting for just a little more discussion on that, and you didn't call for any. And so that moved before I was able to say that I was in favor of the motion. I didn't ever say aye, yea, or nay, and I just want to reflect I was in favor of the motion.
Well, if I could, because I know several of them, I don't know if all four of them are here, but thank you so much for your interest and your time in coming today. It's greatly appreciated, and I hope that you take the opportunities to serve on all of our committees. Maybe we can call on you guys.
All right, so you didn't respond? Do we?
I would assume he could start immediately.
I think he needs to be sworn in.
Well, that's probably true. He has to sign his oath at the clerk's office, so. Can I back up to, all four of the people who volunteered are here tonight, and I would like to thank you. I visited with each of you briefly, but we're always looking for good people to be involved in things. I know some of you have been involved with things, but if you have an interest in, we have, like Dr. Hannigan mentioned, we have a lot of groups that meet, and I would be happy to help you get connected with some of those groups, and I would hope that if you continue to have an interest, that maybe at a future, when we have an election, that you would consider running for a position. We do a lot of important work here with this board, and so we need great people. The comforting part to me in this whole process was we had 4 good candidates to fill that spot, but obviously there can only be one. So if I can help you in the future, if you would like to follow up, please give me a shout, and I would be happy to help you any way I can. And then we'll get with the county clerk and follow up on Mr. Wallace's appointment.
Okay.
Okay.
And I just to put out there too, is my vote was not a vote against Alex, it's a vote against the precedent that was set, because I don't think that is the best, I don't agree with that part of the process, so just FYI, Alex, I'm excited to have you on the board, so. Any other comments, or?
I do want to say that I'm really appreciative of the interest I mean, such a commitment to even throw your hat in, and it's just a great thing, and so everybody that did that is to be commended.
Okay, anybody else? All right, then let's move move on to board open discussion. Janine, would you like to start?
I don't have anything right now. I'm not at work. That's your job. Guess I could mention the chamber banquet on the 6th, since Laura's giving me the evil eye.
On the
here.
5th?
5th, Thursday. It's been all day.
Monday.
Yeah, definitely.
KSB is having a comp training in Scott City on Thursday. You should be done in time to go to the chamber banquet if you want to go. It's on school finance. It looks like it'd be a really good one for us to, if you're able to go, especially since it's in Scott City. So, and I think that's all I have.
Tim?
I made a little bit of a reference this evening to the fees that the high school students pay to the community college, just so I could catch all of you up. I've been meeting with Dr. Carlin and doing some research on what those fees are. It caught my attention the last few times I paid the tuition for my kids for their dual credit classes at the community college, and I can't say that it necessarily affected any of my decisions about my kids going to the community college, but it did strike me that these fees are not insignificant, and I will be just poking around a little bit, asking questions, and just wanted the rest of the board to know that this is on my radar a little bit, and I'm just trying to educate myself about those fees.
Okay, Mark?
Okay. Not too much, but in talking about kindergarten readiness and all that we do in the district to train our staff and to look for engaged employees, encourage every employee to be engaged. I think we had we had comments, and I can't remember whether it was the commissioner at KSB or at the annual conference, or whether it was the poller from the organization that did the polls. But basically it highlighted in some of the comments how important it is to encourage staff to remain engaged. I think the simple example that was given, excuse me, was you're walking down the hall and there's a piece of paper there laying on the floor. I mean, it's a piece of trash, and you might have somebody that sees that, walks over, picks it up, and puts it where it belongs. That's an engaged employee versus, say, somebody that walks by and says, well, it's not my piece of paper. It's not my job. Off they go. And then a very, very rare occasion, you might see it and say, oh, that's where the paper belongs, and they dump the paper in the hallway. But it's that first employee that we love and cherish so much, and it really makes the world go around for USD-457 to have engaged employees. They have each other's back. The collaborative environments and the processes that we follow, that's something I learned very early on as a board member, is process is important. And a truly collaborative environment makes for good decisions that are good for kids and good for classrooms. And so it's always good to see that. And I got a t-shirt on here, TKI is A-OK. That's just one program and one example in early childhood where that happens. And it can't happen without good collaboration amongst a lot of different people, classrooms, therapists, parents. And so it'd be interesting to hear about TKI sometime, because I think I know just enough to be dangerous. But it's one of those things, I think, one of those tools that we have at USD-457, we've had for many, many years, to try to deal with all of these young minds coming in early childhood and getting them ready for kindergarten. And for those kindergarten classrooms to be able to address a reasonable group of kids that aren't too diverse or don't include kids that maybe need self-contained or some other middle, which is what TKI is, some other middle ground. So it's just an example, I think, of process and engaged employees that really help us make it happen with early childhood and transitioning into kindergarten. So I made this t-shirt. You know, more specifically at Florence Wilson, they had, not Cat in the Hat, Dr. Seuss newspaper day. So it was headlines, so white shirts and black newsprint. So I had the shirt made up for that reason. I don't have anything else.
Okay. Dr. Carler?
I will be going to Washington DC tomorrow with some people from the Kansas Children's Service League. We were selected last spring to a partnership program with the Office of Head Start. And one of the things that kind of wasn't mentioned tonight in terms of kindergarten readiness was a partnership with Kansas Children's Service League and our local Head Start folks. Another example of an agency in this community that's working collaboratively with us to help address that readiness issue. And not only for, one of the things I've learned from this process is they're not so much about kindergarten readiness for kids as they are really about helping families address that as well as many other needs in their lives. And so the whole purpose of the program was to increase collaboration and communication between Head Start programs and local school districts. So when our folks wrote the application last year, we were one of 12 districts selected. So that was pretty cool. And I'm happy to report back that we have improved our communication. Mary Martha Good was hired as director about the time all this was getting going, and the people there have been great, and our folks on our end have been great, and we're starting to really see where that communication is actually making a difference in some of the services for kids. We still recognize we've got a big gap of needing to serve more and more kids and more families. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but we actually have the attention of the National Director of Head Start, and we're going to her turf Wednesday and Thursday to hear what others are doing and look for more ways, report out about what we're doing and look for more ways that we can make things even better. And then lastly, just want to tell you thank you. The board sent a plant, the passing of Mary's mom, and that's been a difficult thing for her in her life, and we certainly appreciate your thoughtfulness and your support during that time. So thanks.
And I just want to mention it was one of 12 districts in the nation, not just the state. So I'm glad I didn't have to bring them up too. Okay, so the next board meeting will take place on Thursday, March 26th, 2020 at 5 p.m. in the board meeting room at the Educational Support Center. And we will move on to executive session.
I may, just as an FYI, I might not be here.
Okay.
So, KH soccer, we'll see. We're so questionable. No. Sorry, how long do you think we need? 30?
I'd start with 30.
How long do you think we need?
Let's start there.
I'll be quick. Okay, famous last words. Before I make my motion, considering that, but for the fact that the county clerk is closed at 8:10 p.m., and considering what we're going to be discussing, I would like to invite Alex Wallace to our executive session. Would that be all right?
If he's not been sworn in, we can do that.
That's what
Yeah.
I want to make sure.
I talked to KASB about it from a prior executive session that we were doing, and it's up to us. We can invite whoever we want. So it's not illegal to do that.
Okay.
Madam President, I move we go into executive session for 30 minutes to start to discuss negotiations for the 2021 school year under the exception for employer-employee negotiations under coma beginning at 8:15. And the open meeting will resume in the board meeting room at 8:45 p.m. I would like to invite Dr. Carlin, Heath Hogan, KJ Knoll, and Alex Wallace.
Okay. Do I have a second? I'll second. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.